Okay. The recordings, I think we are good. We will talk in this lecture. It's fillings out there. We know that technically two types of fillings. It's either amalgam or composite. We can inlay or onlay, but that's for another talk. But composites are the most used ones out there, and it's important to understand, know of again the different types and the different qualities and properties have. Um, so before we start, I think we watch a video about a composite being done just to get a, you know, all together in the same boat on what we are, how composite is done and what it looked like. So this is a general composite filling. So one's definitely we prepare the tooth, remove all the caries from the tooth. We need to first etch the tooth, right? We talked about that a little bit more about in bonding in chapter 5. And it's the ABC technique. You have to etch, and B to bond, and then C to of the composite treatment, remove everything. We have to acid etch. And when we do the acid etch, used to what to do, right? Open the rods. And as you can see here, they did a selective etching kind of the enamel. And it looks like they have two section of the etch. Maybe this is a little bit stronger one, and this is a little bit, less intense because that is for the dentin, and we it luster once we etch it, uric acid, right? So now what they're doing, bonding, right? That's the B part of it. And Wednesday group doing composite chair side. So we'll start doing that with each composite chair side, um, getting you guys to set up composite. So you'll get more familiar with these, and chair side working. And we know bonding is placed to what? To hold the composite to the tooth. So it's the glue that holds the composite to the tooth. That's how the composite actually stays on. And now we need to cure it. We cure bond for about 20 seconds. And then we start to place composite. Composite or packable. Just from the name, it's the viscosity that is different. And we'll see also what will be different when we have material. A little bit of level at the bottom, so more even base. So they keep adding and curing and adding and curing. And, you know, they're trying to get back the fits, even fits and fixtures again for correct look of the composite. Composite is cured for about 40 seconds instead of 20 compared to the, they keep adding. Yeah, the technically, yeah, natural. By bond, right? So bond attaches to the tooth and then composite attaches to bond. But as we add layers on top of layers, at the end, you know, bond composite is just attaching to composite, right? So just the first composite attached to bond, but then the next layer. So what happens is we have a layer of not completely cured composite at the top of each layer that we place, which we call an air inhibitor. Not completely. And material to it to make sure that it cures completely. Finishing, making sure that the tooth will look as natural as possible. With that, well, that's one, you know, articulate, you put it in the articulating paper, ask the patient to bite and see if they have high spots, which again, it doesn't mean that it will, they should not have any spots on it. You'll see that when we do also composite chair side. They have to bite on the, I think I showed you guys, right? Biting on the articulating paper would leave colors and marks on the tooth. But at the same time, the dentist also kind of get an idea about how this tooth will look like, and it's more of a skill of the dentist, you know, to do that in the beginning without even using the articulating forceps, but at the end we have to do the articulating forceps and making sure that the bite is normal and back to the right. Exactly, they remove a little bit because we see the markings on the teeth and how big or small they are, and depending on that, we can adjust it to make sure that it actually follows the correct bite of the patient. That's it. Okay, so that was the again the video for the composite, and let's go ahead and see slides. So we're talking here, huh? No, we're talking here about the direct placement as the chair side and technically on the tooth, right? So we're preparing that. Talk about a little bit later in the slides, but technically that's the regular way of doing composite, which is directly placing it on the tooth. It can be, you know, we can do it in a composite resin. Sometimes a glass ionomer cement can be done as a filling or as a restoration, or resin modified glass ionomer. And also we have something called compomers that we'll talk again at the end, which is technically composites with some benefits of the glass ionomer having fluoride in it and all of that. Okay, now let's talk about the actual composite resin and what it's made of. What are the things that actually makes composite? So composite is usually materials. It is tooth colored. And let's talk here about the composition. So if you look on the side, this is technically what represents composite. So you have matrix, which have all of that empty space of the composite. It is the main part that will actually make the piece of the composite. Will it be packable composite? So if you have more filler on a composite, most probably it's packable. Uh, Having less filler will make the composite shrink. Bad thing about the composite, increase the polymerization shrinkage, and so on and so forth. So, and the sizes and the shapes usually manufacturers do to make composites. A little bit. A couple that will link these together technically, the filler and the matrix. So these are the basics of the matrix, filler, and a coupling agent. Okay, so let's see. An organic resin matrix and sets when we apply curing light to it. So the reason it does that because initiator, which we call them the polymerization reaction that will make the composite set. So composite is also the photo initiators or the initiators and accelerators and definitely pigments. That's with different shades to match the patient. Right, that's the composition of the composite. We're talking a little bit more here. Organic matrix. Sigma. Um, if we add more resin, do you think the composite will be more stiff or less stiff? Less, right? Exactly. Because remember, I said the less the filler is, the more. So, and how about the elastic modulus? Technically reduced. So the elastic modulus is the stiffness measurement. That's what elastic modulus is. So, right, the material is. Um, so if we have more resin in a composite, it will be the stiffness. As I said, these give us the strength, the wear resistance, can reduce the shrinkage, and that's kind of one of the important parts of making the actual composite. It can be quartz, silica, glasses, so different types of fillers that we can put in a composite. And more filler means more stiff and increase the elastic modulus. Fillers together. polymerization reaction based on whether it is a chemical cure or usually light cure. And pigments provide, yes, exactly. So we know the different components of a regular composition of the amalgam, a composite, resin, fillers, coupling agents, initiators, and pigments. So all of these and what each one of them would do, or if we increase. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We're good here, guys? We filled that out. So this is just a picture of, just a representation of how what are the different types of composite based on fillers. So like we have macro, we have micro, and we have mini, and then we got all the way to even nano. Do I have nano here? Yeah. So you can see, I mean, this is based on the time. This is when it first started. We used to have the macro, which is bigger, macro fill, right? This is in nanometer. So that's the regular one, just one size. They're just bigger particles. And we started making smaller ones. So with bigger particles, it's good with strength, but it doesn't polish well. With smaller ones, usually it's polish well, but it's not good with strength. So that's why we started creating hybrids afterwards, which kind of gives us the benefit of both the macro and micro. And then we start to creating smaller ones. As we go forward, we just create smaller and smaller ones. And then we got to the nano fillers, which is much, much, much more smaller than the regular size. And again, provide us with good qualities. And then we have maybe a nano hybrid. Again, that's what the companies play with, as I was saying. The filler particles, the size of them, and how they would make the composite. So let's talk about that here in this slide. So the classification of composite by filler size, okay? This is by filler size. So the macro fill have bigger, right, or larger particles, but it's difficult to polish, right? So we longer as well. With the micro ones, there are smaller particles, right? They're a little bit weaker, but they polish better. And that's why we created the hybrid composite, which contains exactly macro and micro, right? So it's better polish, better strength, better wear resistance. Again, just by playing with the filler particles of the composite. We're all good, guys? Yes? Okay. Let's see. Yes. Oh, okay. Sure. Okay. So, as I said, we have micro hybrids, nano hybrids. So these are just getting smaller and smaller. Nano hybrids, we call them also universal. We can use them in interior and posterior fillings. Again, a lot of composites now are nano composites that are even much, much more smaller than the regular ones. So again, this depends on manufacturers and what they may be specifically for. Some of them are for bulk fill, as we will see when we have a bigger fillings, cavities that we want to fill in. So like more than 2 millimeters. Them for build up when we have a tooth crown that is destructed, when we want to rebuild it. So it's more strength, and so on and so forth. Some of them for more interior teeth. So it's made of. Is it packable or packable? I cannot really see. It's with compression material, heavy. Okay, all right. Composite. This is technically how composites set with a polymerization reaction, because the resins that they have is they're technically polymers, and they harden when technically the polymerization happen. It will main three topics. That will be cure, right? That is the self-cure one. So with chemical cure, is just like when you mix a cement, right? You mix a cement, you have a setting work time. Once you start mixing, the setting reaction is started right away once you're mixing these. So this would give us a lot of working time to work, the two, and all of that. So it's not, or not at all, most probably, for composites. And then we have light cured, right? And that is the most common. This would activate with an initiator, and I want you to know that to be able to, so if I ask people to recognize exactly main initiators that we use in composites to make them actually active, once we apply the light, this product ionization reaction does that. And this tells you that our curing lights needs to be also specific for initiators. So if you are into looking at the curing lights, are they active of the initiators or not? And we have composite that will be activated by any curing light. So this is something to look at when you're using a composite. You have to know what initiator it will have, and will your curing lights completely activate of the initiators that are inside of that composite. So again, these small things that nobody really think about, like the patient would not really know. You're curing with the light, and if it's done that, but maybe not all of it will be initiated. It's not a complete cure that we will have. And then if it's the cure, acidity issues and some other problems. Cannot hear you on my end. Daniela, can you hear me? I guess it's on your side, Alexis. Huh? But it keeps cutting. No, Daniela said she can't. Yeah, Alexis cannot hear me, but Daniela can, right? But it's cutting off. Well, these are new batteries, and I see that we have enough coverage. I don't know. How about now? Can you hear me? I guess hopefully it does. I mean, I didn't do anything different. So, you guys can hear me now? Hopefully, yes. Anyway, okay. Guess we'll continue. I put the transmitter out, so this might actually also make it better. Okay, moving on. So again, as I said, um, the activators inside of curing of the composites is an important part of our work. And then again, having the curing light that actually would cure these activate initiators is important. So that's why, because these initiators are light activated, even they might not activate completely, we do not want to start the activation process before we completely done with shaping the tooth. And that's why we usually place it, put the light of the operatory light away from the tooth when we're doing the composite or the sealants, so that we do not start the activation process and we'll have like a half activated or half cured composite or sealant. What also can be done, and what some offices will have, in the light itself, so the operatory light, it actually have, you can change from regular light to orange light, and that orange light would filter out all of the blue light and it will not cure composite. Okay, and some, even some dentists have their own, they have the loops that they wear and they can have a filter on top of it that is the orange filter, and that orange light would not actually activate composite. What lights? No, they don't have that shade. Yeah, that's a good, I'm thinking now we might actually try to order some that will, I'm not sure if they can retrofit them to the ones that we have, but a lot of offices have these. And again, if the dentist is working with loops, they have these loops on their eyes and they have the light in them. You can just flip it and you can have an orange light that would not cure composite.
So if they have those, would they still need the big light, or
It depends. A lot of times you still have the light for general view, for assistant view, but depends on the yeah, the person that, now even the now even the high speed handpieces have lights in them. So yeah. Okay. So, and then we have the last type of cure, which is dual cure, exactly, and that will usually the light starts the reaction, and a chemical reaction or chemical cure would finish it. Okay, so these are the different types of polymerization, or the ways of to polymerize composites. Can be chemical, can be light, and it can be dual. Now, one of the main problems with composite is the polymerization shrinkage. That is kind of almost one of the most and only maybe back, disadvantages or problems with composite is that when we cure it and when that polymerization reaction happen, the composite can shrink a little bit. And again, this is like on a microscopic level. And that's what bacteria needs, right? They just need a small space to be able to go into our teeth and under our fillings, and then they will create secondary caries, right? So that is one of the main problems that composite would have, and definitely been addressed. And we have a lot of workarounds around that. And then we have also composites that shrink less, and so on and so forth. But this is a problem that we need to know about. So usually when we cure the composite, and when it starts to cure, it kind of goes towards the center of itself more than so again, like we put a composite here and we fill up this. Well, this is not a good color. We fill up this space, right? And then we cure it, the composite will shrink down towards itself, technically. Boom. See, all of that technology. So, you will leave a lot of, well, not that much. Again, it's on a microscopic level, and you'll leave some opening for micro leakage, right? So that's the problem that we're having with, again, with composite polymerization shrinkage. And whoop. And then let's see, what do we have here? Let's delete this. Okay. So let's talk about that. So the more the resin that we have, right? Remember, we have resin and filler and all of these things. So if we have more resin, we will have more shrinkage, right? So flowable composite have more resin, so it shrinks more than a packable composite. Okay. So to be able to address this problem, we usually do a layering technique with composite placement. So we place it in increments and layers, and that will compensate. So if you look here into these pictures, so for example, we put a first layer here, and then we cured it, right? And it shrank a little bit. And then we put another layer that compensated for that shrinkage that happened, and then we cured it. And that's why this is how it should be done in composite. We have to put it in layers. And these layers, again, will compensate for that polymerization shrinkage that we have. And hopefully will reduce that problem afterwards. Okay.
Like they did that, like they just shot that flowable in there and then cured it up.
It was really thin layer of flowable, and they put on top of it a packable composite as well.
So they only did a little bit of it.
Yeah, I mean,
It
it's
looks like they just filled that up and then put the packable like right on top.
it's no, they I think it was good because they put a lot of layers on top of layers. Yeah, exactly. And then so see, and again, it depends on the material that you're using. Some flowables are made for specifically for the deeper parts of the tooth. And again, it's just how the dentist would work with it. And so we'll see also that usually what is recommended is that the increments that we put for composite would not be more than, what do you think? 4, 2, no, 2 millimeter thick. So when we are placing these layers, and again, this is what the dentists need to think about, they would put them more, again, in a smaller amounts or smaller thicknesses more than anything else. So like when we saw the video again, I don't think the flowable was more than 2 millimeters, right? It was just maybe a 1 millimeter layer, and then they cured it. And having that done, it addresses two problems technically. The first is the polymerization shrinkage, right? And the second is if you have a thinner, less thick composite layer, you can blank better. You can blank it better. Cure it. Yes, you can cure it better, right? So the curing light, again, it's another really important part of the composite filling, because if your curing light did not reach all of the composite layers, that means it would not all be cured, right? So again, if you put a thicker layer of composite, a thicker layer of composite, for example, right, that is more than uh, 2 millimeters, right? Maybe the curing light will reach only here and does not cure all the way, or the whole strength of the curing light will be here, but it will be weakened within these parts of the composite. So it would not be cured completely, and then we have problems. So having the 2 millimeters thick layers will provide us with less shrinkage and also more curing, making sure that the composite is all cured all together, all through the layers of the composite. Make sense? Okay. And let's see. And definitely, I think we'll mention that later on, but a lot of times, you can see here we have a class. What is this classification? 2, right? Because it has two, it's a posterior tooth and includes a mesial or distal. So usually we cover it, right? And we have a tooth next to it. A lot of times after we remove the matrix band, we would have to cure it again without the matrix on it. And we might be curing it from lingually and buccally, not just occlusally, to be able to reach to all of the layers of the composite everywhere. Okay, so we might cure it here 40 seconds, and then here 40 seconds, and then here 40 seconds, and then when we remove that, we cure it again. Okay, so just keep that in mind as well, again, because we need to cure all of the layers of the composite. Okay, So the physical properties of composite. Now, when I talk about properties, I was, oh no, it doesn't include the curing. It's not a pro. Okay.
Well, we already know if that's on the test result.
Okay. So, the physical properties of composites. So biocompatibility, how it is with the normal tissues of the body or of the oral cavity, it's good. We have very limited or few allergies. Not a lot of people allergic or have allergies to composite. So it's good. It's a biocompatible material. The strength of the composite, so the larger the filler, the stronger the composite, right? Is it wear or wear? Wear. So it wears faster than amalgam. Definitely amalgam is a metal, but compared to amalgam, but generally it's good enough. I mean, it's not like bad wear. So thermal conductivity is similar to the tooth. So it conducts the temperature, technically similar to our fillings, to our tooth. Gold is the best one with the thermal conductivity and expansion. Thermal expansion, it has greater expansion than the tooth. And definitely also when it has expansion, more expansion means also more reduction. So it can actually debond or can cause leakage. Again, these are like secondary problems with composite because at the end of the day, it's two materials, our tooth and then another material linked to it. So if they change in the dimension when we have heat or cold, it can definitely cause some debonding or delinking of the parts. Um, the more the resin, the less stiff and the less the elastic modulus. Water absorption, technically how much water can get through the composite. So again, more resin, more water absorption. And when you have more water absorption, that means it can stain easier, right? So the stains of the food and coffee and all of that, it can get into the composite easier. And then radio opacity, that we actually add materials to the composite that will make it look actually radio opaque under x-ray. So like, for example, if we look at these before, I think this is like uh, an older composite filling. It actually, we do have the filling here, but it doesn't show on the x-ray. So the newer ones, they added radio opaque material to make it actually more visible. Huh? Yeah, but these are fillings as far as I remember when I took the picture. These are fillings, but it's just that the composite doesn't have radio opacity in it added. So they added to composites, usually to cements, to be able to have that in there. Now we have the delivery systems. So how can we use, it's not zooming, zoom. I guess I can't do, no, it's not working. I think my keyboard is off. I might need, no, it's working now. Okay. So now we should be able to zoom in. So how can we use composite? Just when we talked about uh, impression materials, how can we use them? Remember, we have them as tubes, we have them as cartridges, we have them with Pentamix machines, something like that. So with composite, we can have them either as a syringe. Oh, I skipped the first one. The compules are these. They can call them capsules or compules, like composite capsules. These are compules here. Something's going wrong with it. And then definitely these compules are worked with composite guns, so compules and gun. And again, these can be flowable or packable. It doesn't have to be packable. The syringes, also same thing. It can be flowable or packable. And there's a different method also of placing composite, which is called a sonic fill. So if you look here at the side, you see these compules. These are the syringes. So it can be flowable syringe or a packable syringe maybe. And these are the sonic fill. So you will not see that much often, I guess, in offices. You'll see it in some. Whoever, it just depends on how much the dentist, prefers the sonic fill. Technically, it provides some vibrations, which will make the composite flow better into the filling space. And sometimes it will also say that it will reduce the shrinkage of the composite and so on. So that's another way of putting the composite on. Let's see a video about that here. So this is the sonic fill. So, and this connects actually to the handpiece connection onto the chair, right? But let's see. I'll show you another video in a second. Let's see about what is good about the sonic.
Sonic fill makes posterior restorations easy and predictable. It's the only sonic-activated single-step bulk fill composite system that does not require a capping layer. The sonic fill system features composite material that incorporates a highly filled proprietary resin with special modifiers that react to sonic energy. In its initial resting state, the modifier forms an extended stabilizing network throughout the resin. As sonic waves are applied through the handpiece, the modifier causes the viscosity of the composite to drop up to 87%. This increases the flowability of the composite to enable quick placement and precise adaptation to the cavity walls. Once the sonic energy is stopped, the composite returns to a more viscous, non-slumping state, ideal for sculpting and contouring. With sonic fill, the process takes less than 3 minutes.
So they say it's good. Now let's look at 3M people or Dentsply people.
It's a crucial choice for Class 1 and 2 procedures. Which bulk fill material should you use?
And again, when we say bulk fill, that means filling some cavity that's beyond the 2 mm thickness. So we want to bulk fill it in one step instead of having to do the layering. And again, some clinicians prefer
To
that.
help you decide, SDR Flow Plus takes on Sonic Fill 2 in laboratory simulations. First, we compare the products side by side in cylinders. Note how SDR Flow Plus on the left adapts itself to the space and self-levels, requiring no further manipulation. But the Sonic Fill 2 material stays in place and does not self-level. It would require an instrument to manipulate and adapt it to the walls of a prep, which can be time-consuming and may provide uncertainty regarding adaptation. Here's proof. In these two SEM images, notice the gaps in the Sonic Fill 2 prep, while the material prep is gap-free with excellent cavity adaptation. SDR Flow Plus material's self-leveling capability extends to maxillary restorations as well, as we see in this side-by-side video of two simulated Class 2 restorations that have been sectioned and mounted on glass. Inside the SDR Flow Plus restoration, the material fills and adapts to the internal anatomy and immediately begins to self-level once the concolid tip is removed. The Sonic Fill 2 restoration does not, and would require additional manipulation to achieve adaptation. And here's a crucial consideration. The average depth of a Class 2 restoration is 6 mm, and most indications for bulk fill materials, including Sonic Fill 2, recommend you place in increments of no more than 5 mm. This means that you'll need at least 2 applications of material for many Class 2 restorations. And in the Sonic Fill 2 case, this means 2 applications that potentially offer less cavity adaptation and still requires manipulation after dispensing. Choose the right material for each application, and we think the choice is clear. For cavity adaptation, self-leveling, and overall ease of use, we recommend SDR Flow Plus. Choose clinical supremacy.
Ta-da!
Or visit
When you open your clinics, choose that. Yes. So again, I mean, each manufacturer would push their agenda and say, well, ours is better. And there's the other one say ours is better. And again, at the end of the day, it's the clinician, you know, the dentist choice and what they prefer to use. Huh? The bulk fill? Which one? Or the Sonic? It was the bulk fill is just a compule. It's just similar to that, but just the material inside of it is different. Right? It's same thing, you know, you have a gun and you have a one of these compules, but just the materials inside of it is different. Which one? Let me see. So this is the video, right? Which one? This one? Yeah, this is a compule. This is just a compule type of composite. See? In a gun. So it's mounted into a gun. That's like a composite capsule or compule. Yeah, similar to the ones that we actually use in. It's just a little bit different shape, but it's similar to these. These are compules with a gun. Yeah. Okay, so the last slide that we're going to talk about and stop here are the composite types. And technically, this is like how we call them or name them based on their viscosity more than anything else, I think. I don't know. I don't want to confuse you because we said we have composites based on polymerization, right? Or the different types of polarization of composite. So we have cure, light cure, dual cure. We have different composites based on the filler size. And then we have different composite, I guess, well, just by their names. And again, more about like viscosity and their use in a way. Okay, so we have the Pitts& Fisher sealant. So Pitts& Fisher sealant is considered as a composite. It's low viscosity, which means it has high resin and low filler. The flowable one, still low viscosity, still have high resin and low filler, but it's more than the Pitts& Fisher sealant. And can be sometimes used as a liner if we need to. The packable ones are low resin, high filler. And then the bulk fill, which we watched in in the video here. So it's usually used for deeper cavities when we want to fill them faster. So you can do more than 4 milliliters or millimeters of increments instead of 2. And then you have the core buildup that has the heavily filled, a lot of filling material into it. And again, the core buildup is just when you have a crown, you have a tooth that lost the crown of it, and you want to make a new crown for the tooth, and you want to build up the tooth technically. Exactly. So let me see. For example, this is a tooth. I'm trying to draw. Right? And we have all of the crown destroyed. And we want to go ahead and build it up. So we'll build it up a little bit better with build-up material, which is build-up composite. And then we will place the crown on top of that. Boom. How about that crown? With a smiley on this side. Okay? So I think we'll stop here because we do have another lecture. We're going to cover the rest of it. And, huh? I'm sorry? That's the only lecture. I mean, we're going to finish it up next week, and we'll continue the information that we have. Let me stop recording. Stop screen sharing. And, okay. Any questions about this? Let's see. Can close this up now. So maybe 9:30, around 9:30, I'll be back. Okay. For science. All good?